Today, I'm going to explain a horror fantasy movie called The Devil's Advocate. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care, and listen for Al Pacino's laugh.
Yeah!
The movie opens inside a courtroom in Gainesville, Florida, where a case about child molestation is currently being fought. The victim, a young high school student named Barbara, is recalling her account that happened to her a few days prior. She alleges that her math teacher, Lloyd Geddes, asked her to stay back after their regular class. When she innocently obliged, he began touching her inappropriately. As Barbara continues explaining her harrowing experience, the defense attorney, Kevin, begins to notice something creepy. He catches his client Geddes touching his genitals and trying to pleasure himself. The pervert teacher is actually aroused listening to the poor girl recalling her events. This disgusts Kevin, and he finally realizes that his client is guilty. Whoa! After Barbara finishes her testimony, the judge asks the defense to present their case, but Kevin, who is shaken by his discovery, asks for a short recess instead. The judge agrees, and the case is adjourned for 15 minutes, during which Kevin confronts his client for being a child abuser. He then storms to the bathroom, seething with anger. It turns out that Kevin is fuming at the possibility that he might lose a case for the first time in his career, instead of the fact that the person he's defending is actually a disgusting creep. This anger increases even more when a local reporter named Larry arrives in the bathroom and begins to poke fun at him. Listening to the sneering remarks of his colleague, Kevin becomes even more determined to win the case by any means necessary. Back when the hearing starts, he questions the character of the teenage victim through a strict cross-examination. Kevin ultimately proves that Barbara simply wanted to take revenge on Geddes because he was strict to her in math class. This causes her to lose confidence, and Geddes is pronounced not guilty. After the success of his case, Kevin, along with his wife Marianne and some other friends, celebrate in a local bar. They have a few drinks, and the husband-wife duo dance together sensually. Kevin's untarnished record of victory has also garnered attention from other parts of the country. A representative from a powerful New York City law firm, Lehman Heath, soon approaches him with a lucrative offer. Lehman invites him to assist a jury selection in New York and hands him a check right there. Kevin, who initially thought Lehman was bluffing, immediately agrees to the offer. The next day, the hotshot lawyer goes to meet his deeply religious mother Alice at a church. She is a strong-headed woman who raised him as a single mother. Kevin informs her that he's going to New York to select a jury for a big law firm. Although the old lady thinks that New York is not a good place for honest people, she doesn't interfere with her son's decision. Consequently, Kevin and Mary fly to New York a few days later. The firm has booked them both first-class tickets and arranged their stay at a high-end hotel. The couple is immediately struck by the luxury and thrill of being in a huge city. At work, Kevin selects a jury for Lehman's case based on his instincts. His gamble pays off as the jury delivers a non-guilty verdict. Kevin later returns to the hotel he's staying in and informs Mary about it. The two of them jump with excitement, as this means that the young lawyer's string of success is still unblemished. The following afternoon, Kevin is summoned by John Milton, the charismatic head of the law firm. He soon arrives at the luxurious headquarters and meets John in his ostentatious circular office. John is an intimidating personality and interrogates Kevin regarding Geddes' case. The up-and-coming lawyer, however, replies to every question with total honesty. John is impressed and takes the newbie to his terrace, overlooking breathtaking New York City views. He then offers him a high-powered position at his firm with a large salary. Kevin is delighted by what he hears, and he accepts the offer. He and his wife now permanently shift to New York. They are given a beautiful apartment to live in, right in the heart of Manhattan. Lehman and his wife Jackie also live in the same apartment, and even give the new couple a tour of the place. Following this, Kevin finally starts his new job at the firm and is formally introduced to the entire staff. He is soon assigned his first task, a health code case, in which he has to defend a guy named Moves. He then starts spending most of his day at work, leaving barely any time for his wife. While Kevin is busy working on the case, Mary has nothing else to do but paint the walls of their apartment. She slowly begins to get frustrated by this boring life and eventually befriends Jackie. Meanwhile, after spending days and nights on the case, Kevin finally wins it. Milton is so impressed by his work that he praises him publicly. He even invites Kevin and his wife to a high-profile party being hosted by an extremely influential estate. Mary is extremely nervous to go to a party filled with strangers, but Kevin assures her that he will not leave her side. However, during the party, he is dragged away by his colleagues, leaving her alone with the wives of other lawyers. John sees her getting uncomfortable and takes the opportunity to spend some time alone with her. He shows a keen interest in Mary's hairstyle and persuades her to cut her hair. On the other hand, Kevin can't stop ogling his sexy co-worker Christabella. He notices her standing alone on on the terrace and approaches to have a conversation. Hey. Back inside, Mary starts getting awkward and looks for her husband all over the party, but Kevin is summoned by John to his office, along with Lehman and the firm's managing director, Eddie. The boss informs them that their longtime client, billionaire Alex Cullen, is charged with the murder of his wife, his stepson, and a maid. Eddie, who has previously worked with the billionaire, is pissed when John assigns the case to the newcomer. Nonetheless, Kevin spends a good few hours understanding the case in the office itself. He returns home late at night, only to find his wife boiling with anger because he had left her all alone in the party. The next day, Alex comes out on bail and immediately lashes out at John for taking his case lightly, but the latter assures him that Kevin might be new in town, but he is the best lawyer anywhere in New York City. Back at home, Mary gets a haircut and spends most of the day shopping with Jackie. They enter a high-end clothing store and try out pretty dresses, but during this, Mary begins seeing visions of Jackie transforming into a demonic creature.
These dresses are to die for.
She gets extremely scared and ends up fleeing from the store. That night, her anger boils over and she tells Kevin about the vision she had. He refuses to believe in such things and tries to make Mary understand that it is her abrupt change of environment and new friends that are making her hallucinate abnormal things. But a distraught Mary breaks down and asks Kevin to return back to Florida, as he barely has any time for her. Seeing her reaction, he finally realizes that his wife has been feeling lonely. He thus calms her down by having passionate coitus with her. Yeah. Unfortunately, when the proceedings for the triple murder trial begin, Kevin spends most of his time at work. This leaves Mary isolated in their apartment once more. She also begins to suspect that her husband might be having an affair with a colleague, which is why he returns home late almost every day. Later that week, Alice visits New York City and runs into John while entering her son's apartment. The old religious lady immediately gets a strong negative vibe from him. She is so spooked by something that she decides to go back home the very next day. Alice also suggests to her son that they should all return to Florida, but he refuses straight away. In the end, she simply asks him to look after Mary, as she does not seem to be coping well with the new environment. That evening after work, John stops Kevin and insists on taking him to a wrestling match.
Naked men fighting each other. Yeah!
The latter is a bit hesitant, as it's already too late, but he eventually agrees. Later, as the two of them enjoy the match, Mary calls Kevin, asking him to return home, but he quickly shuts her down by pointing out that he can't say no to his boss. Back at home, Mary is slowly spiraling out of control. She has a nightmare about a baby playing with her ovaries, which have been surgically removed. She is unable to fall asleep, and when Kevin finally returns home, she tells him about the creepy dream. He keeps assuring her that it was just a dream, but Mary is hell-bent on believing that it is true. The next day at work, Kevin finds out that Alex has been having an affair with his secretary, Melissa Black. The billionaire was actually with her on the day his wife was murdered. Alex says that he is ashamed of his actions and wants to keep them a secret. Soon, the first day of the trial of the triple murder case arrives, and Kevin comes out with a brilliant strategy. He portrays Alex as a very corrupt man and even ousts his secret in front of the jury. He wants to make them believe that Alex was out cheating on his wife on the day the murders happened. The following day, while heading to court, Kevin runs into Eddie on the street. He tries to initiate a conversation, but the latter seems to be pissed. It is revealed that Eddie had recently discovered Kevin's name listed as a part owner on their firm's charter. This was the position that Eddie always wanted, and now he feels like the newcomer is trying to compete for his dream job. A clueless Kevin denies any knowledge of this situation, but Eddie threatens to inform the United States Attorney's Office of their firm's illegal activities. Shortly afterwards, Kevin relays the situation to John, who immediately asks his assistant to take action. The scene abruptly shifts to Eddie, who is jogging in a park. In a shocking turn of events, he is attacked and beaten to death by 3 goons who have strange demonic appearances. In the meantime, Kevin starts working, as it is the second day of the triple murder case. He prepares Melissa to testify in the court and interviews her. The assistant claims that she had an affair with the billionaire, a testimony that would greatly help them in winning the case. But as Kevin begins to question her, he realizes that Melissa is actually lying. He loses his cool and exits the room, only to find out that Eddie had died. Later, while leaving for the trial, Kevin informs his boss that Alex knowingly lied to him. The billionaire is in fact guilty of murdering those 3 people. Kevin, however, can't afford to lose, so he decides to play along as it is. The trial soon begins, and he calls Melissa on the stand. He eventually proves Alex to be innocent, using Melissa's fabricated testimony. Immediately after the trial, Kevin is informed that his wife is sitting in a nearby church, and her mental state is extremely bad. He rushes to the location, only to find Mary covered with a blanket. She sobs uncontrollably and reveals that John John had assaulted her all afternoon. Kevin refuses to believe it since John was with him in court all that time. To prove her point though, Mary removes her blanket and shows her body, which has been brutalized with cuts and scratches. But a shocked Kevin assumes that she had gone crazy and injured herself. Fearing that she is losing it, he eventually admits her to a mental hospital. Mary says that it is the blood money they took from the guilty which is causing them problems. She also tries to assure him that she's not crazy, but to no avail. That afternoon at Eddie's funeral, Kevin has visions of Geddes and Alex and immediately leaves the church. He then meets a U.S. Justice Department agent on the street outside. The agent has been investigating John and warns him that the entire firm is corrupt. Kevin refuses to listen and keeps walking away, but the agent yells out that the body of a 10-year-old girl was found in Geddes' car, for which he has been arrested. This news shocks Kevin, but before he can ask any questions, the agent is struck by a car and dies on the spot. At the same time, while attending the funeral service, John sticks his finger into holy water. He smiles devilishly as the water begins to boil. A few days later, a disturbed Kevin goes to visit Mary, but finds his mother Alice and his case manager Pam at the hospital. Alice pulls her son outside the room and decides to tell him the truth about his father, but Kevin lashes out at her for choosing the worst timing to reveal the truth that she's kept from him for 30 years. Just then, Mary sees visions of Pam transforming into a demonic creature and attacks her with a hand mirror. Kevin hears his wife's screams and rushes back to the room, only to find that Mary has blocked it with a chair. He begs her to open the door, but before he can break in, Mary unalives herself with a shard of mirror. This devastates Kevin, and he breaks down in tears over the tragedy. Once he's done crying, he goes to his mom and asks her to complete the story. The old woman then shockingly reveals that she had met John in New York in 1966, and Kevin was a result of their brief affair. She begs Kevin to leave everything and come back to Florida, but he coldly dismisses her request. Shortly afterwards, Kevin goes straight to John's office and confronts him. The boss has absolutely no problem admitting that he did in fact assault Mary. In a shocking twist of events, John reveals that he is actually Satan himself. Upon hearing this, it finally dawns on Kevin that his wife had known this from the start, which is why John killed her. The young lawyer blames him for everything, but John points out he had a choice to leave. It wasn't Satan, but rather Kevin's hunger to win at any cost that landed him in this position. Moments later, John claims that vanity is his favorite sin, and then introduces Kevin to his half-sister, Christabella. The devil reveals that he wants the two to take over the firm, and also to conceive the Antichrist. At first, Kevin agrees to it and starts to negotiate with John, but all of a sudden, he grabs a nearby gun and shoots himself in the head. Ironically, the gun belonged to Alex, who used it to kill his wife, son, and maid. After witnessing his plan go down the drain, John's rage erupts like a volcano, setting the entire room on fire. He then transforms into his demonic form, turning into a white angel who resembles Kevin. Following this, the scene cuts back to when Kevin is at the recess of Geddes' trial. He returns to the courtroom and announces that he cannot represent his client, despite the threat of disbarment. When Mary asks what he just did, Kevin answers by saying that he did the right thing. Outside the courtroom, Larry offers Kevin an exclusive interview that will portray him as a star and make him famous. Our hero initially hesitates, but after encouragement from his wife, he agrees. The film ends with Larry transforming into John and saying, "Vanity is definitely my favorite sin."